Okay, everyone. So before we get into the next video here, it appears that for some reason or another, I have lost the footage of me separating the crankshaft from the case. In the last video, that's where we left off. I had gotten the one side of the case off, and the crank was still in the case, needed to be separated, everything taken apart and cleaned. And that's where the video is that went missing. That video entailed me separating the other half of the case from the crank, making sure all the tolerances were correct, cleaning everything up, making it look as clean as possible, putting in the new oil seals, and just getting ready everything that needed to be put back together. And that's where we're going to pick up in the next video here, is where that left off. So again, sorry for the missing footage. Sometimes this stuff happens, but I hope you enjoy the following video of the beginning of the assembly of the cart engine. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Joshua, and this is Dark Earth Customs. So I finally have received all the parts that I need to put the golf cart motor back together. And I think we're going to go ahead and give that a start tonight. So, without further ado, we're going to start right here with this seal. While taking this all apart, I had discovered that I was one oil seal short and one gasket short. And I had to order those. And in the meanwhile, I took all the parts that I could and I cleaned them up in my parts washer and got myself a mild chemical burn on my left hand because I didn't think about wearing gloves. Hands back to normal, but most of the top layer of my hand got eaten away, kind of like a sunburn. Kind of gross, but didn't really hurt. It was just kind of flaky. So between that and waiting for parts, really didn't have very much to do. So we're going to start here. This is, as you guys remember, or may not, this is one half of the case that the crankshaft goes into. This is where this oil seal goes on this side. Goes right in there like that. And go ahead and tap this in here. And then I can start by getting some of the rest of the hardware set up. Now, I don't have a seal press for a seal this size. So what I'm hoping to do is just take a socket that's roughly the size of the outside of the seal here where it's steel and not the inside rubber. And we're just going to try and gently tap this down because this seal has to be absolutely flush and not cocked at all. Otherwise it's going to leak. Okay, it is going down just fine. And once I get this hammered in here, I will show you what it looks like. kind of hard to make it exactly perfect without having access to the very top of the seal housing. There's just absolutely no room in here to get any kind of straight edge or anything like that in there to make sure it's level. So this is just kind of an eye judgment of to see if it looks flat, see if it feels flat as I run my finger around the edge of it. And I would say that's pretty good. Now we can take and get the pickup sensor. Now I said a few times I wasn't sure what this was before I broke the engine apart. But this is a pickup coil to let the engine know when to spark. Otherwise it won't be able to fire. This is kind of like a pickup coil for a car engine. It just reads the rotation and fires at a precise moment to make sure it fires on time. Alright, so that needs the 3 screws for that. I'm going to be getting up and down, I imagine, in this video because I have a prep table behind the camera that has all of my parts. So we need these little 3 screws here. And now that I got the cable run and the seal installed, that's what it looks like inside here. It's a little countersunk past this lip, and it feels like it's about the same distance around in every direction. Maybe a little high right here, but not much. I could try just tapping that down maybe another millimeter. Just like that. That feels good. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this pickup installed. And like I said, you're going to see me up and down, because not only parts table behind the camera, but I was actually working on cleaning and organizing my barn in the process of waiting for my hand to heal and to get the parts here. So we take these screws here. The little short screw was to hold the wire in place, and the long screws were to hold the pickup in place. Now, this being a 2-stroke motor, has no oil, like on a car when you can check your dipstick for your oil level. 2-strokes do not have the same oiling system as a 4-stroke. So that's why you mix oil in with the gas. As it circulates through the engine, it lubricates the parts it needs to, and the rest goes to making the engine run. All right. And I'm not sure, considering this was cleaned maybe I should put a little oil in there. I'm not going to use grease because this isn't an area that needs grease. So I'm going to use a little 3-in-1 oil. And I'm just going to drop some drops inside there to make sure that bearing has enough lubrication for startup. All right. Next step is the crankshaft. Now, before we get the crankshaft, installed in the case, we need to do a couple quick things. One of which is to get some oil on these bearings on the inside. But the biggest issue is it needs piston rings. So let me go grab those. I suppose I could have probably just rolled my parts cart over here, but I didn't. So this is what we're dealing with. New piston rings. Now, overall, I heard a lot of good reviews and read a lot of good reviews from this particular company that I got my parts from. Usually, there's always going to be a couple bad reviews. One person said that they broke their rings trying to install them. I'm actually not completely sure how that happens. Piston rings are made from carbon and steel. Most of them anyways. And unless you're trying to yank your piston rings open, they're not going to break. They're not made to break. So how a person gets their piston rings to break is quite an accomplishment. Now I'm going to check here because I don't know if there's a top or bottom. To these rings. They both look exactly identical. Except the fact that there's an R written on one side of them. And obviously that R is there for a reason. But R doesn't spell top or bottom. So I guess we're going to have to find out what the R means. What I'm doing right now is looking for a taper, because that will usually indicate how the ring goes on. See, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there is a little R written right on the ring there. I know ring starts with R, but that has absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm just kind of using my bright work light here to try to figure this out. Now that looks flat there, but it almost looks like there's a taper. Going upwards there. Kind of got my body in the way of the camera here, but gotta make sure. Because the last thing I want to do is do this again. So, also, when you're installing rings, most cars have 3 rings. One of them being 3 pieces, so technically there's 5 individual rings. But you can't have your rings all stacked up with the gap all in the same area, because that's just going to let compression go right by. So your rings have to be generally staggered at in the shape of kind of like a triangle. So just looking here, I believe what this R is the bottom, because there should not be a taper towards the top. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get these rings on. I always start with the very bottom ring, because you'll never get one ring past another. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your ring, and you're going to kind of want to expand it a bit. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use my piston ring tool. That way the chance of it breaking is even less. So let me go grab that. Okay. Another way that this is different from a standard engine is that the piston is going to go up through the bottom of the cylinder, because the connecting rod is already connected to the crankshaft. It doesn't come apart, so you can't put the piston in down through the top. So you're not going to use a piston ring compressor to get the piston in. But we can use this as a piston ring expander. That way, you just slip your piston ring in there. And be very careful. For as strong as these are, they can be fragile. All right, so there's one. And make sure the rings go around, and it's being kind of sticky. I'm wondering if there's anything in there. I don't remember if I actually have. They make tools to clean these out, to clean these grooves out for the piston rings so they don't get stuck. And I'm wondering if it's just too darn dirty in there. There's a little bit. What's even more interesting is though this ring won't compress. Okay, so we're going to start by taking this ring back off because there's something going on here that I'm not too aware of, because the piston ring should compress fully and be able to move around in this groove. Now I don't see anything that would stop that from happening properly. There's a little bit of carbon buildup, and let's see here. No, we do have, there it is. All right, well, you guys aren't going to be able to see this, and there is no way I'm going to be able to show it to you. Inside this groove here is a little round pin that they pressed in, and there's one here too. So that means that the piston ring, the gap is, or the location, I should say, the location for the piston ring has already been decided. That's not on all engines, but it is on this one. So let's start this process over again. And get the ring down here, get it seated. Okay. It's still not seating, even though it's that's unusual. I hope I don't have to reuse my old rings. I think my old rings are still good, but I'm not completely sure. I know the head gasket was blown out. Obviously, you guys saw that. Let's just try flipping this over. Now, I didn't see any anything that would identify this ring as having some sort of yeah, and see, this darn thing, it gets down in that groove there and it just snaps into place. There we go. And I don't know what the difference was, but obviously there is some unknown taper that I didn't see. And now the piston ring is completely flush against the surface. And it moves freely. Now, I'll tell you, I don't like the fact that that ring is not seating all the way down. It almost looks like it's too big. And I guess we'll find that out once I get the other ring on. and I try to put the cylinder down around the piston, because if it doesn't fit, that means there's a problem with these rings, and I'm going to have to use the old ones and hope they're not worn away as much. All right, there's ring number 2. Got a tiny bit of surface rust forming on the bottom here. I'll have to brush that off. But I'm just going to check this because I'm a little curious before I go ahead and get this before I go ahead and get ready to set this up here. I want to make sure these fit, because if they don't fit, then there's no reason in putting this together. With these rings. Well, it does fit. Okay, that's a good start. So, like I said, I got a little bit of surface rust here, but we'll handle that soon enough. But to start, need to get the 2 halves put back together with the crank in the middle. All right. Well, it looks like there's a bit of wear on the crankshaft from the bearings. I'm hoping that's not going to be too big of an issue. I guess we'll find out. So, let's go ahead and get a little oil in this bearing. And we got 3 bearings. We got the big crank bearing here. There's a bearing for the bottom half of the connecting rod and a bearing for the top of the connecting rod. And I'm going to go ahead and just put a little oil in each one, because that will help prevent what's called a dry startup, where there is no oil in the system, and you will burn out parts really fast doing that. So a little bit of oil on the moving parts makes things go back together really quick. All right, next step. Let's get it in the case. Now, it should be just as simple as dropping this down in here, giving her a little shove. It's close, but it's not there yet. We need to make sure that all this is gonna go together smoothly. And we're just gonna give her a little tap 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 here and a tap tap there. Getting that 3-in-1 oil all over my hands. Ooh, that stuff really smells bad. There we go. So, now we got the one half of the case with the crankshaft and the piston and the connecting rod, and you see how that goes up and down just like that, and that's what makes your compression, which turns it into power. Next step is to get the other half of the case so we can bolt it all back together. Oh boy, that better not still be in the tank or I'm going to be highly upset. Nope. Get this off my hands before it burns me again. So, that's very unusual. I mean, it's not like it can just disappear. So, what happened to it? All right, we got the cylinder here, and the head, and the fan, and the clutch, and the dampener, and everything but the other half of the case. Oh, that is, yep. Wow, okay. It's still in there. So, I guess what we learned here is to always make sure your parts are all together. Make sure you don't lose your parts. Don't forget about your parts. So I'm going to have to do a quick clean on this thing here. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to put some gloves on first before I start this thing all over again. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but it is raining outside. It would appear that the drought in Minnesota is over. But will we get enough rain before it snows? I know it sounds funny that you could have a drought in the middle of winter. But if there's no moisture in the ground, there's no moisture. And of course, these blue gloves, they always tear. Have to be good enough, I guess. Okay. Yep, well, I can say that, I guess. Don't leave your parts in the cleaner. Otherwise, you might end up having problems. It looks like there was some corrosion on this side of the case. From sitting in the cleaner. Now it doesn't look like it's caused a big problem, but nonetheless it looks like it worked on taking away the very surface of the metal here. So I'm going to have to make sure that I get as much of this off of here as possible. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be workable. I'm not exactly sure what happened. You can see the gray liquid spraying off of this. That's actually the case. So I don't know exactly what's going on here. It seems like it's some sort of corrosion. And this also means I'm going to have to fire up my air compressor, so I will have to get this cleaned up and take a break while I turn on my air compressor, because I'm going to have to air dry this. Hopefully the rain won't stop me from filming. If it gets too much, it will be impossible to film because it gets way too loud in here. It's weird. It's like goo. I don't know what kind of chemical reaction this was, but lesson learned. Always check to make sure you have all your parts out of the parts tank before you put everything away. Alright. Yeah, not exactly sure what that's all about. As you can see, the splatter all over here is just ridiculous. I just don't get it. But this is gonna have to be cleaned. I mean, you can see it's like turned it gray. And I have no idea. So let me go ahead and turn my air on, and I'll get this dried off, and I will be right back. Alrighty, everyone, I'm back. It looks like there is some sort of chemical reaction between my parts cleaner and aluminum. However, all it really did was turn it like a gunmetal gray. I'm not seeing any other issues. Now, I had also said that I was going to put a black RTV sealant here. I don't see any sealant or a gasket with this case here. So I think I might just go ahead and put it on without it. I do see remnants of it, but I don't see an actual gasket. I haven't seen an actual gasket online. So I'm assuming this case should be just a bolt-on. Doesn't make sense to me, but I don't know two-strokes. Anyways, I think that's the route we're going to go. I see there are 2 bearings here. And I'm going to move this bearing up just like I did the others. That way it's got some nice turning ability. So it doesn't fire dry. And I didn't see a whole lot of oil per se. When I took this case apart, but I guess we're going to find out. Slide that down there. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me good anymore because it is now raining and is getting louder. I was really hoping to get some more of this taken care of tonight. But at this point, I don't know if you can hear me. And just as I said that, it rained even harder. So, I guess I'll be putting this on pause. And I will pick it back up when the rain stops.